people, my name is Timmy Joe. I make videos about computers on the internet, and today on the program we have a little episode of Quick Tech where we're going to talk about this beautiful Corsair 680X, their Crystal series, and it's actually the first product that Corsair's ever sent me, so yay for me. And it's a beautiful, gigantic monster of a case, and it was certainly an interesting build. So we'll get right into it. First impressions, it is very big and it's heavy, and rightfully so. There is some plastic on the top and the front panels, but it is a pretty big case and there's a lot of metal going on here. It comes with those RGB fans you see in the front and one exhaust fan that is not RGB. And we'll talk about the RGB software and the experience with the RGB in just a second, because I'd like to get into that a little bit, but essentially I moved my EATX X299 dark EVGA board in here. A very big board, a substantial board, and I've got a little bit of SLI going in there too, right, with some 780 Ti's that we're going to be testing in SLI in the next video. So this is the GPU test bench, and if you remember, I just did a video yesterday where I checked out the Noctua NH-U12A, which is in here, their beautiful 7 heat pipe cooler. And I don't actually see that there's any issues running my overclock at 4.75 gigahertz with the case closed. So airflow seems to be a non-issue. It's very well ventilated, and that's what this case is geared towards. And you might say, well, there's tempered glass on the top, the front, and the side. How could there be good airflow? Well, there is a very substantial gap in the sides here. You know, they've put it in there. And I looked at other reviews. If you want to see like real comprehensive, I always, suggest Gamers Nexus. They go crazy deep dives into this stuff. But, if there's like a 5 or 6 degree difference between removing that front panel entirely and there being no glass there and it not looking very good, and the glass being there. So they did a pretty good job that way. So some issues building. I would say it's just mostly because it's not a standard case. There's a dual chamber design, and as you see here, there is a lovely, second chamber which allows for 4 2.5 hard drives, 2.5-inch hard drives, and 3 3.5-inch hard drives, and a lot of room for cable management over there. And you can get kind of lazy with it, and it still doesn't look too bad as long as you wrap up some cables. So that's always nice. Lots of rubber grommets, and lots of holes. Had no issues running all my cables, which is very, very nice. Sometimes can't reach a fan or something to a certain place, or you kind of make some compromises on how you get your CPU connectors at the top going from the power supply. No issues there. So what are the issues with this case? Well, it's very expensive. It's $250. So right there puts it in a price category of enthusiasts only. And I don't know if it's really the best for enthusiasts. You could certainly fit a 360 mil rad in the front and 240 and a 240 on the top and one on the bottom. But as far as it being like a water cooling, support, you wouldn't. There's not going to be a lot of room for a pump, at least not a very big one that you want to put on display in this front panel, unless you get creative and maybe mount it on the bottom or something like that. I don't know. You'd have to. There's no real because of the lack of space. It's not very long this way. You're going to have to get creative where you put a pump, or you'll just have to store the pump and reservoir in the back chassis in the second chamber, which is definitely something you could do. So you might ask why I went with keeping the Noctua in there. Well, just so you guys know, I did a review on that Noctua yesterday, and I found that it was doing very well versus actually, and it would have made sense aesthetically to put this in here, and it will fit actually, even with a push-pull, as long as you're keeping with standard graphics card lengths, because there is, like I say, it's not a very long case this way. But once I disconnected this from the old rig, people were saying in the comments, you know what, you choke this thing off by putting 140 mils in the front instead of 3, or like maybe it would do better all on its own. When I put this on open air and put it out there, it didn't really do any better. So I thought, why would I put this thing in here? It's very loud. and it needs some further testing, and I'd like to test it with another CPU, and versus an Asetek 360mm rad AIO, because this is obviously not an Asetek design. Maybe Corsair could send me one. We'll talk about that later, Corsair. But why would I have this big loud thing in there when I'm getting the same performance from an air cooler? And that way we can test this, kind of base configuration. And it seems to be working fine. I got no issues running my overclock at 4.75 gigahertz and running Cinebench and Cinebench RR20, just as if it was in that open test bench I was testing in yesterday. So that's testament to the airflow in this. And it could get even better, especially, gaming is going to be a different story because you're going to have 2 hot graphics cards in there. But as configured, it's very good. But you could throw an intake on the bottom and an exhaust in the top, or and then feed fresh air into your graphics cards, and I think you could make this really, really good. But you would have to put in some extra expense, and that's where we come into the fans. Because if I was going to be doing that, I'd probably want to buy 5 Corsair RGB fans that match this, that so you could plug them into the controller this comes with that actually plugs into USB. So there's no RGB headers on the Dark X299 from EVGA because it's not meant for that. So it's, I could just plug it into USB and then I can control it with some software. But coming from a lot of other cases, especially budget and stuff, you're used to seeing that 4-pin or 3-pin RGB header that you just plug onto your motherboard and then go download some software and away you go. Or maybe there's a setting in the BIOS, or maybe there's a button where you can just cycle through the effects. By default, that's the effect that comes on with those fans, and you have to go and then download the software, which was, I figured as much from the Corsair website. But once you install the software, you see here, it gets kind of hard to understand. Because number one, you have to figure out where to start selecting the Corsair, peripheral you want connected to it. It doesn't say, hey, automatically, look you have the case connected. Maybe you want to change the colors on the fans in this case. It actually makes you go and select which fans you have. So I had to go on their website and start hunting for which fans this thing came with in order to then add them to a profile to then start changing the lights and stuff like that. So it's definitely geared towards enthusiasts that want to dive deep into stuff like that. And then if you want to go ahead and add more fans, there's only spot, at least with what comes with this, to add 3 more fans. And I have another Corsair fan that's just like the solid color RGB fan. It wouldn't work with this. In fact, I might have even broke it plugging into, even though it's the same connector, it just wouldn't light up, and I saw it light up for a split second. And I've done this before where I plug something in the Corsair fans wrong and they just poof, the lights no longer work in them. So you'd have to buy these exact fans, and you could only add 3 more, so you're maybe 1 exhaust and 2 in the top. But if you wanted to add 2 more in the bottom, you'd have to get another controller. So obviously, you'd probably end up buying a pack of them that comes with an extra controller, and you can plug an extra controller into the secondary controller. It's confusing. So you can add up to 2 controllers with this one little box that's in there. Yeah, and maybe some RGB strips from Corsair and stuff like that too. And you're not going to be controlling any other peripherals with that software. So if you have Asus AuraSync, you're going to be using that in addition to the RGB software that comes with the Corsair. There's 2 extra pieces of bloatware that are on your computer. I'm a big fan of press the button until you find the effect you like. Because there's just not enough congruity with all of the different manufacturers unless you're going with someone specific. I'm sure that Corsair software would control their RAM RGB just fine. But all in all, it's a really nice case. It's beautiful. It's really heavy. It's big. It's definitely not something you should run a GPU test bench in, because I'm going to have to haul it on and off the table all the time. But what really was the selling point of me switching my RGB or my graphics card test bench in here. RGB test bench. Now there's the day. My graphics card test bench in here is, I can leave this panel on and it comes off. It's actually screwed in there, but it's very easy to just pop on, pop off if you need it. And you can swing it open, put some more graphics cards in there, mess with your system. It's not overly complicated to put back on. I'm just a dummy. There we go. It's magnetic, and it's actually kind of hard to open. It takes some force, so at least, you know, that's nice. And it looks very nice, except for the big gaps. Like, if you don't want to put anything in the bottom or top of this, I wish included was some like aesthetically pleasing way to cut off that bottom, you know, to put white in that bottom. It probably wouldn't be as big a deal with the black version of this case. And I think that's where I'm not thinking, you know, if you got the black version of this case, you wouldn't notice as much that top grill or the dust cover. And you probably wouldn't notice that there's like, you know, fans not connected in there. So all in all, I really like the case. It's definitely enthusiast grade. And that's going to be maybe a problem for a majority of the viewers on this channel. I think a lot of people are budget focused on this, and this being a $200 case. And I just want to say, I just recently reviewed an Enermax case that I deemed like their Sabre A, one of the best cases I've ever built in. And the aesthetics aside on it, it has like RGB lights and stuff. It's a $200 case, so it's $50 less than this. And it came with the 3 fans, so I think it was missing 1 fan, or I took a fan out of it. But the things that it did come with that I really liked was that you could press the dust covers and they just popped right out, and that they came with an extra panel, so if you want to choke off the top, you can put that panel in there. You know, so there's a $50 less case with a little bit more you know, flexibility, I would say. This thing, you definitely want to make sure it's the right case for you before you purchase it. But I will put links in the description below to Amazon and Newegg if I can't find it on Amazon. You know, so if you wanted to do some affiliate links or whatever, you can go check them out in the description below. But all in all, it's a very beautiful case, and I think this is definitely something you want to like leave stationary on your desk because it's very heavy, and that's kind of, you know, something you'll want to consider. This isn't something you're going to be moving around a lot. It is a big honking case, but it's very well built, and there's some pretty good airflow in it. So it's definitely going to be a good case for, you know, keep your system cool. It's not choking things off. I don't think it's on the level of like, you know, the full-on open-ended front cases, but it's getting close to that with how they've designed it. You can also put a vertical GPU in it. I think that about covers it all. It has USB-C port on the top. You need a couple SATAs to plug in the lights and stuff like that, the controllers. That's about it. So I'm not watching. Join Instagram and Twitter. Thank you very much, Corsair, for sending this over. It is an extremely nice premium case with a couple of different drawbacks, especially, you know, you put the way you put rads and stuff in it. You can only put one 360mm rad in it. You can't put them on the top or bottom, but I'll leave that up to you if that's a big deal. You could certainly fit a pretty big AIO in there or a custom loop system. You just have to kind of think around how you're going to do it. So I'm at Timmy, join Instagram and Twitter. Thank you very much for watching. Thanks for Corsair sending me, and I'll see you guys in another video.